Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. It's just going to get ready for a day where we had some Heat Summer League action coming up later on tonight. But this morning, some Heat news breaks as Caleb Martin is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers in free agency. Sucks. I mean, I can't paint it any other way. Hate losing Caleb Martin, but hate losing Caleb Martin to especially the Sixers. Like, that adds the sting to it because I was prepared for the Miami Heat to lose Caleb Martin, but you've heard Daryl Morey snooping around Caleb Martin and Haywood Highsmith, and so to add one of them to his roster was bummer. It was a bummer, and for Caleb Martin to go from this spot last year where you're like, is this guy a building block? He just had, arguably the best performance out of any of the players in the Eastern Conference Final. Was coming back with a vengeance, you thought, and he goes into this year. Obviously, he don't go as far. He doesn't get to shine in the playoffs as much as he did the year beforehand. But I was fully prepared for Caleb Martin to make a boatload of money. I mean, some of the first reports out there were saying he was easy going to make 15 a year. And I don't, usually when that stuff's out there, agents know. I always remember looking at the Tyler Johnson deal and Woj saying he was going to make $50 million. And I was like, get the hell out of here. And lo and behold, he did. But this one is a bit of a weird situation, and it was interesting watching play out on Twitter because the numbers for his contract took really a long time to get thrown out there. And interestingly enough, then all of a sudden, a lot of the Heat reports had come out that the Miami Heat had already offered him a lucrative extension of 5 years, $65 million. So about $13 million a year for Caleb Martin. To Ethan Skolnick's credit, I think he was the first guy to mention this a few days back, that Caleb Martin, was given the opportunity to stay with the Heat long term. But the thing is, because of the tax stipulations, like the Miami Heat and the salary cap stipulations, the Miami Heat needed him to opt in and extend. And his agents didn't want to do that. They didn't want to pay him the $7 million that he would have made this year with bumps every year. They wanted to go and get himself a new deal. Now, as I record this at 11 o'clock, there's a couple of different reports out there. The Martin deal, Caleb Martin's deal, according to Ira Winderman, was 40 years, $40 million over 4 years, so about 10 a year. Still less than what the Heat offered. And, if you're going by that, $25 million less guaranteed. And then for Adrian Wojnarowski, he had reported 4 years over $32 million. So I don't know what the incentives are there. I don't know what's lost. The point is the Heat offered more. The Heat did offer him more, maybe not immediately this year, but it was going to be more and more guaranteed, and a pretty long-term deal, 5 years for Caleb Martin. It's a long-term commitment. It is. So I think that you could look at these if the Heat putting something out there like that. The Heat have been, pretty sensitive to the idea that people are calling them cheap and they don't like that label that's being thrown out there. And I do think it's a bit of an unfair description of them, but you want it to be put out there that, hey, we did offer this guy to stick around. He wanted to go elsewhere. The other thing that's interesting with the Woj report is that he is going to be essentially slated in as their power forward. So we're once again going to a year where this is PJ Tucker all over again, where the Miami Heat have a tremendous run from their starting four, their undersized four, and then he ends up going to Philadelphia. And, we all know how it ended up for PJ, but the reports are from Wojnarowski is that he is going to be starting, expected to be their starting power forward alongside Embiid and Paul George. And of course, with Tyrese Maxey, there's some thoughts that Kyle Lowry's probably going to go back there. So undersized power forward is going to be the role for Caleb Martin. And There you go. So it's interesting because it's probably not the ideal role that he'd want to be in, but you don't want to go back, tuck tail to the Heat after you think you're going to have this big deal. What do? You go to his rival. I mean, the agent really, in a big way had, the signature move of Caleb Martin, which is essentially the toe on the line long two. That's what this is. Like, yeah, you got a nice deal. You got a long-term deal with a good team in the Philadelphia 76ers, but was that really what was best for your client? And, like, did you really read the room of the market the best way? I think the thing that if you're a Heat fan, the thing you're bummed about is not that you lost Caleb Martin for nothing, because I think that was expected. You could argue, should they have sold high? Hey, we all could be Captain Hindsight and be like, hey, should they have sold high off the Eastern Conference Final? Yeah, okay, cool. The reality of it is, though, like, when you're coming off of a year where you go to the finals, like, you don't think you're going to have this catastrophic off-the-rails season that the Miami Heat did. Caleb dealt with his own injury issues this year. There's so many, durability issues this year for the Miami Heat. But this guy, it sucks because he's just a winning player. Like, he plays balls to the wall so hard, defends his ass off, and then really, like, when his shot is going, I mean, it's probably the most inconsistent thing because, like, you genuinely don't know. Like, one day he'll come back. It's like a guy with a different batting stance every single week. Like, he's every once in a while is just like his shot just looks like it's out of whack. But when he gets hot, you know that he's an absolute danger in these situations. And we saw that against the Bucks, against the Celtics. What a torrential storm this guy can bring on the court for your basketball team. So yeah, it definitely hurts to lose him. And I think when you feel like you lost him because of agent ego, that sucks all the more. And the Heat are doing some damage control here, and we could find out from Caleb. I'm sure when he has his first press conference, he's going to be told, he's going to probably tell the media, Miami didn't want me back at what we wanted to be back for, and this was an opportunity to go play with an MVP and Joel Embiid. And they could spin this all they want. I mean, they could do a masterful job and do it in the Philadelphia media, and ESPN's gonna gobble it up like Pac-Man, and people are gonna treat Caleb Martin just like they did Gabe Vincent last year and Max Strus. Like, once you leave Miami, you're no longer the undrafted bums. You're looked upon as, you're going to be the key to unlocking everything. And, whatever the way he spins it, whatever the agent, good, look, good for him. Hopefully, unless he plays against the Heat, hopefully Caleb Martin has a lot of success. Like I said, great dude to cover, fun player to watch. And then for the Heat, like, look, it's been a bad summer so far. It's been a bad summer, and we don't know what's going off. It feels like things have been too quiet. And, for their standpoint, hopefully that they have this big swing that they're laying in the weeds for, because, to have this come out there, like, it almost feels like the Heat will be quick to get on that damage control of, this is what we offered. But it's like, all right, cool. You guys did your public-facing thing to make yourselves not look like you lost another piece for nothing, and that you tried, and that's great. But I think the Heat fan is, as much as the Heat fan, we can sit here and we can dance on the agent and make fun of him, and which I'm guilty of. I've lashed out at him on Twitter. Ultimately, Miami Heat, like, if you go and make a move that will make the Heat fan forget that Caleb Martin walked for less money, because here's the thing, the Heat are in a spot right now with their fan base. If you would have paid Caleb Martin $65 million, I think the Heat fan would have been furious. And for them to offer that deal, it not come through, and them to immediately come out as like, it was crazy to see that the Woj tweet comes out there. Very noticeable that there was no dollar amounts on the tweets, because it's always out there, and Woj will, like, tag the agent who gave him the leak on every report, and this wasn't out there. You had to go to the Woj story to get the numbers. Then Ira had his tweet, which said maybe it was a little bit more, probably, maybe with incentives boosted up there from his agency. But, for the Heat front office, like, you guys are doing more work to make it seem like a player took a bad deal than just going and making a deal. If you go and make a deal that the fans are excited about, nobody's going to care about what Caleb Martin got offered from the Heat and what he took. Ultimately, you want to know what's going to be on the roster this year, and hopefully there's a great showing in Summer League tonight, and that'll get the fans somewhat juiced up because the draft has been the best part of adding to a Heat roster as of late. But there's also a part of me that's like, damn, the Heat got out there with those numbers to make Caleb look like an idiot real quick. And I think for the Heat standpoint, like, that's your victory there. It's like, tried to sign Caleb Martin, but he went to our rival for way less money. His agent's an idiot. And it's like, dude, just go make a trade. Definitely need to wonder about the Haywood Highsmith thing because, those lockdown perimeter defenders are going off the board for the Heat on their roster. There's also a part of me that, like, just looked at the Caleb Martin thing and knowing the emergence of Jovic, the performance of Jaime Jaquez, and what you think you're going to get out of those guys this year. Should you really lock up $13 million a year on that either? So in a way, yeah, the Heat didn't want to lose him for nothing. They didn't want to lose him. But also, I do think that the Heat is evolving too. And, maybe this is basketball-wise, was that going to be great for him to be locked up on this deal? But maybe his role is shrinking by the year. And you have almost a Duncan Robinson situation where, it's going to take more free agency and more injuries for him to come forth again. We'll have to see. But ultimately, like, look, really, really great story for the Heat throughout his Heat career. Caleb Martin, he was a really, really fun player to watch. He was a great guy to cover. Very, very nice individual. And, good for him. Like, it sucks because it feels like whoever's representation is, like, maybe messed up nearly $20 million in guaranteed money for him. But, maybe he'll have an opt-out in 3 years and he'll go and get to reap the benefits by the time that next year, that next deal comes up. Just bummed. I'm mostly bummed that he's going to the Sixers. I think that's kind of my big takeaway of it. It's like, he's going to the Sixers? Really? Like, that's where he's ending up. The fact that he's gone, not surprising. The fact that he's not going to be on the Heat next year, was expecting it, but also excited to see the guys who don't play or who do play with him off the roster now. Excited to see what they can bring to the table. But yeah, going to the Sixers like that's it's like third stepchild. It's not like the herd of like going to the Celtics or the Knicks, but it's still don't like those bums up there in Philadelphia. So yeah. This is, more losses off the board for the Miami Heat. They still lay in the weeds trying to figure this thing out. We got Summer League coming up later on tonight. But Caleb Martin is heading off to the Philadelphia 76ers, according to reports, on a 4-year deal, anywhere from $8 to $10 million a year, with the Heat reportedly offering a $65 million extension over 5 years for him that he turned down prior to letting his player option expire.